Who will be the top rookies for fantasy football this coming season, and where will they be playing? Before we break down our list, you can catch our rankings for Dynasty, Superflex, Best Ball, and more on flockfantasy.com/endgame. You'll also get access to bonus articles, videos, and of course our Discord server, which is always happening. You can interact with us. flockfantasy.com/endgame. Sign up now. Let's start with the number one rookie heading into this season. We all know who it is. It is the top running back, Bijan Robinson out of UT. Now, this might be a running back that actually gets drafted in the first round and early. Most hyped running back since Saquon Barkley. So, Chris, who gets him?
I think Atlanta gets him with the number 8 pick. I know Atlanta really needs defense, but I feel like they're a team that just can't help themselves. We saw it a couple years ago with Kyle Pitts. I feel like when there's a talent like Bijan, a team, Arthur Smith, he wants to run the ball. He wants to use the running backs. They have a great offensive line there. I think they pull the trigger at 8. I think they just look at him and say he's the best player on the board, best skill position player. I think he goes to Atlanta at number 8, and I think that's a great spot for him behind that offensive line.
That would be a great spot for him for sure in terms of efficiency. I know Atlanta does need offense. I got them taking a different player. I'm going to pull maybe a little shocker here. I'm starting to get vibes that the Eagles are going to take a running back. I'm not the only one who thinks that. But what if they just go out and get their guy and grab Bijan at number 10? They have 2 first-round picks. Maybe instead of waiting till later to grab their guy, maybe they get the best one available. At number 2 in our Dynasty Superflex rankings, we're going to talk about Bryce Young. Will Bryce Young be the number 1 quarterback taken, or do you feel like he might slip?
I think he'll slip, but to number 2, to the Texans. I think the Panthers are going CJ Stroud at number 1. There's a quote from Frank Reich today saying something about like, oh yeah, I actually graded Russell Wilson high because there's some report that he only likes taller, like he doesn't like shorter quarterbacks or something. I think the Panthers are going Stroud, and that means Young goes at number 2 to the Texans, which is a fine landing spot. They got Nico Collins. Hopefully Mechie can be healthy. I know they brought in Robert Woods. They just traded Brandon Cooks. Maybe they'll add a receiver later. So I think he goes to number 2, which is a fine spot.
Completely agree. I see Young going to the Texans. I felt that way for a long time now. And I actually, even though I think Stroud is going to be a better real-life quarterback, I kind of feel like Young, which is the reason I got him ranked just above Stroud, I think Young might be better for fantasy just because of the situation. He's going to have probably access to more weapons, assuming Stroud goes where we think he's going to go. And I think he'll be passing, airing it out more. So it's going to be close between those two. But Young to the Texans, to me, it's almost a done deal. Now, what about CJ Stroud? Is he the number 1 pick?
Yeah, I just kind of gave it away. But yeah, I do think the Panthers go CJ Stroud at number 1, which might not be great for him this year, but it will get better. But this year, CJ Stroud goes number 1 to the Panthers.
Yep, I got Stroud number 1. You know that's exactly what they had in mind when they traded up to get that number 1 pick. They saw him, Frank Reich and company saw him at the Combine. They've been drilling all over him. They've been wanting him. And good for them. That's probably their guy, and that's who they should get. But I don't feel like it's going to be a very good start to his season for fantasy. Like you said, the weapons just aren't there. I mean, do we really have that much faith that Frank Reich's offense is going to be super productive after what we just saw in Indy? Now let's talk about another Ohio State product, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver, had a monster year 2 years ago. Last season, injured, barely did anything on the field. Where do you think he winds up?
I think he winds up in Tennessee as the number 2 wide receiver off the board. I think the Titans will look at him as a perfect complement to Treylon Burks. They need weapons in this passing game. I mean, badly need weapons. You can't just have an offense of Derrick Henry and expect to win in today's NFL. So I think the Titans at number 11 get who I think might be the best receiver in this draft, but the number 2 receiver off of the board because another guy goes ahead of him a couple spots earlier, but I'll talk about him in a minute.
Well, I'm going to keep that Ohio State connection going and say Justin Fields gets another weapon and the Bears take JSN. I know now they just got DJ Moore. They've been adding all these pieces. It doesn't mean they're done, right? They want to make Justin Fields successful, and the only way they can do that is to keep adding. It's not like their wide receiver room is just totally stacked at this point. So why not give him one of the most explosive playmakers available in the draft? And then probably the most polarizing prospect for this year's class, quarterback Anthony Richardson of Florida. Who do you think takes a chance?
I think the Raiders take a chance. I think they look at him and say, okay, we just signed Jimmy G. He can sit behind Jimmy G for a year, see if he can develop, as a more, he's never going to be a pocket passer, of course, but can he develop more of a pocket presence and the ability to throw from the pocket to go along with that incredible athleticism? So I think the Raiders at number 7 figured, let's take a chance on him, see what happens for the next year, sit him behind Jimmy G. Worst case, we roll with Jimmy G again next year. I got him going to the Raiders at 7, which not good this year, but maybe long term it'll be okay.
I've been talking about AR going to the Raiders for a while now, and I definitely could see that happening. But I'm shifting gears a little bit. I think that the Raiders might go a different direction, and when Anthony Richardson falls in the lap of the Atlanta Falcons, they cannot resist. This is exactly the type of quarterback that would be perfect fit here because, first of all, he's a project. Let's just face it. He's not going to be a guy ready to start at the gate, and this is a team that's not ready to contend this year. They could afford to develop him and let him sit behind Desmond Ridder for a year. And if you know this offense, Arthur Smith, this is not a team that wants to sit back and pass the ball 40 times. They want a dual threat guy. That's why they have got guys like Ridder. They had Mariota last year, didn't work out. Right? This wants to be an offense where the quarterback can move around and run, and that's what Richardson will do. That's what he brings. So to me, actually makes a lot of sense, and I think the Falcons might get that chance. And then their stud receiver, Quentin Johnson, where does he go? Assuming he's a first-round pick, but how high?
Well, I talked about JSN being the number 2 wide receiver drafted. That's because I think the Bears take Johnston at number 9. I just think he complements what DJ Moore does a lot better. He's that true X receiver, big-bodied, physical X receiver. So even if the Bears have JSN graded higher, which they may, I think they look at Johnston as a better fit for what they have now that they have DJ Moore. I think he goes to the Bears.
That would be a good fit. I'm going to stay in that division, and I think it would just be so fitting if the Packers do what they've not done for years, kind of give the finger to Aaron Rodgers and say, you know what, now that you're gone, we're going to take a receiver high in the draft, and they're going to get the stud in Quentin Johnston. He is that big body receiver. Like you said, they just lost Allen Lazard. He's going to the Jets to join Aaron Rodgers. They've got Christian Watson, but he's a smaller, faster receiver. They need somebody who's a big body like Johnson. I think it's a perfect fit here. Then we'll go with another running back. That's Jameis Gibbs from Alabama. Is he a first rounder? And if so, to who?
No, I don't think he is a first rounder, but I have him going to the Texans, who do have 2 first-round picks, but I think they go QB. Obviously, we talked about that with Young, but then I think they go defense with their next pick. But I think with pick 33 early in the second round, that's where they go with Jameis Gibbs. I know they just brought in Devin Singletary, but I think the chance to get a guy like Gibbs is too much. I think they view him as kind of the lightning to Pierce's thunder, and he gives them something they did not have last year, which is that, explosive, dynamic, pass-catching back out of the backfield. I think at 33, with their 3rd pick, they do it.
Well, if you guys saw our video on trades that should and could happen, you know that it's very possible Austin Eckler is on the move. He's been given permission to seek a trade. Will it happen? Well, if it does, the Chargers are going to need a running back, and this is where I think they go Gibbs, right? Late enough where you don't feel like you're burning an early pick on a running back. This guy's explosive enough. I don't feel like it's going to be, too early to reach on somebody they're going to need in order to keep that offense moving with Eckler. So without Eckler there, they're going to need a running back. Why not go in the first round and take one of the best talents out there? Then former Biletnikoff Award winner Jordan Addison, slightly disappointing showing at the Combine. How far does he fall, and who still has faith?
I think he does fall a little bit, still to the second round. I think he falls to the Panthers at 39. They lock up a young, dynamic wide receiver to give CJ Stroud some help.
Well, I think he's still talented enough. He showed enough in college, and there's enough teams that need a receiver that he'll stay in the first round and go to the neediest team in terms of that position, and that would be the Baltimore Ravens. They could use a guy like him who'd be kind of like that safety valve out of the slot, Compliment Rashad Bateman, who's still there. They need somebody just who has good hands and can run crisp routes, speed or not. Then a running back that we both like a lot, Zach Charbonnet, put up some big numbers in college. Where does he land?
I think he goes one spot after Gibbs at 34 to the Cardinals. Get a running back who can be their future replacement for James Conner, can split the work with Conner this year, kind of save Conner. Not a guy who, notoriously known for staying healthy. And then it gives him an option next year to potentially move on from James Conner and get out from under that contract. So I think when Charbonnet falls here to the early round to the Cardinals, they take him at 34.
That would be a perfect fit for sure. You know what? I'm going to say the Cowboys go ahead and pull the trigger and get a running back. Well, a lot of people have them taking a receiver, but they just got Brandon Cooks, so maybe they're not going to chase a receiver anymore, but they're going to try to replace Zeke, something that we never thought we would be saying. But Zeke is gone. The free agent market for running backs has pretty much dried up. Tony Pollard can't carry the load all by himself, and why not get a young running back who you can develop and continue to be there? Then there's last year's best college receiver, Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee. Where do you see him going?
I see him going to the Chiefs at pick 32. They obviously need wide receiver help. Hyatt seems like a guy that Andy Reid would love, a speed guy, a burner, run the vertical routes, take the top off the defense. I think they take a chance on him at pick 32 and try to bolster this wide receiver group, which of course would be great for Hyatt.
That would definitely not hurt to have Pat Mahomes thrown to him. I'm going to see Hyatt going to the Vikings, which would be nice because, look, they obviously need somebody else besides Justin Jefferson to take some pressure off Justin Jefferson, who doesn't get triple teamed every play. Thielen, we know, is gone. There's really not much else. The Vikings haven't had a lot of success in terms of drafting and developing receivers other than JJ, but this time it's kind of a slam dunk. Take the guy who was the most productive last year coming out of college, has that frame that you love, and he can draw a ton of targets. Let's go receiver again and talk about Zay Flowers, who is opening more and more eyes as we get closer to draft time. Where do you think he goes?
Yeah, I've got him going to the Vikings, actually. I do think the Vikings, there's a good chance they do go wide receiver early in this draft in the first round. I think they go with Flowers. I think they'll like what Flowers can do, line him up all over the field, use him in different ways, use him, different roles, different routes. I think they'll prefer that. I think they go Flowers for the Vikings.
This might be a stretch, but I can see the Patriots taking him if they strike out and miss on some of these trade candidates. I know that in our recent video, we talked about potentially landing one of those Broncos receivers like a Jerry Jeudy. It's not for sure that that's going to happen because rumors don't always come true. If they don't make a move, I know they signed Juju, but he just replaced Jacoby Myers. They still need more help, and it seems like they're really, really trying to boost that wide receiver core to help Mac Jones succeed. So I could see them going for a guy like Flowers. And then finally, let's talk about quarterback Will Levis out of Kentucky. Is he going to be maybe a top 10 pick, and who really believes in him?
I think he's going to be a top 4 pick because I think the Cardinals are not going to be able to move out of the number 3 spot, which means they're probably going to go defense or something like that. And the Colts are going to have to take him at 4 and not run the risk of not getting the quarterback. There's already been talk that they like him anyways. Now they can't trade up to the number 1 pick and probably aren't going to trade up to number 2. I think they go with him at 4.
Well, I'm going to put him in the silver and black and say the Raiders go for him. I know I've been talking about Richardson going to the Raiders, but this is a team, I don't know, with McDaniels at the helm and they're signing a guy like Jimmy G. I feel like they somehow still believe that they're possibly contenders. They don't want to wait and develop a guy for too long. Jimmy G's that fine bridge quarterback. They want a guy who they feel like won't take a year or more, and this might be the guy to do it. That's where we think these rookies might wind up. But what about some of these players that could be traded? Check out our video here where we think some big trades could go down.